Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. When Woody Hayes, the famed Ohio State football coach, struck a player, he was fired the next day. His career was over, despite his storied career as Ohio State football coach. Remember, Amy, that was the 1978 Gator Bowl?
Yeah, of course, I remember that very well.
Ohio State versus Clemson.
Clemson.
The player he struck.
A player. Those
Charlie
wearing pads.
Yeah, Charlie Bauman, Clemson nose tackle after an interception, right? A game that Ohio State lost 17-15. He gone. So what about Juwan Howard, the Fab Five alumnus and coach of Michigan basketball, over this?
Yo, and Juwan Howard just threw a right hand. And now we got a scrum. We have a scrum in Madison. Players are pushing and shoving. This is an ugly scene.
So after the game yesterday, Juwan Howard is apparently upset with Wisconsin coach Greg Gard for calling a timeout near the end of the game when Wisconsin was going to win. And comfortably, they won by 16 or something. And so they had words, and then Juwan Howard threw a punch in Gard's direction and actually hit the Wisconsin assistant coach instead, and then that scrum ensued that you heard the announcers describing. Yeah. Should Juwan Howard be gone?
Hello, if he did that outside, anywhere but inside that basketball arena, he could be charged with an assault.
Well, that's every fight.
Or the mortal combatants.
That's every fight in a sporting event. I mean, should Juwan Howard be gone? Nolan Finley, our friend over at the Detroit Free Press, is calling for him to be done at Michigan. I mean, it's a pretty serious thing, particularly at the collegiate level, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what message does that send to your players about discipline? And I mean, he got under his skin, yes, so we called out a timeout at 10 seconds left, but the coach had a right to do that. I know it's not, it's not good form to do that, but who cares?
For more on this and I guess some matters about the state playoffs in Illinois as well, pleased to be joined by Joe Trost, who's a student-athlete advocate, founder of Buddy's Helpers, a nonprofit that engages and educates student-athletes using the power of sport to make a difference off the field. He's also a former reporter for the Sun-Times, Tribune, and ESPN. Joe, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Joe, are you there? Hello, Joe.
Do we have Joe?
Let's see. And
that's an easy question. That's a yes or no.
Let me push the button and ask him if we have.
Okay.
Okay, trying to put him on. Oh, there he is. Hi, Joe.
Joe, do we have you? All right. Well, let's take a break and see if we can get Joe Trost on one of our phones. Oh, Joe, are you there?
There we go.
Okay,
How you guys
great.
doing?
Very good. So what about Juwan Howard? Should he be gone?
So I'm a huge Ohio State fan, so that's
This makes it easy. Joe? Do we have Joe? Joe's gone again.
Oh. So
okay,
he said he was an Ohio State fan, and then the line dropped.
Yeah, I was here.
See how that works.
Let's take a break and see if we can get Joe on the line. We'll be right back.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Grandview buys homes. Hi, I'm Tom Detlich. Grandview has been helping families who want to sell their home for over a decade now. Grandview is different than using a real estate agent to sell your home. We buy the home directly from you in as little as 10 days. I can share countless stories of families who had a difficult to sell home and who were so stressed they didn't even know where to begin. With Grandview, the process is simple and stress-free. Contact us for a brief and private appointment at your home, then get your fair cash offer in as little as 24 hours. It's that simple. As the largest direct home buyer in Chicagoland, you can trust us to treat your situation with dignity and respect. Our highly trained team knows their job is to buy your home and solve your problem. Grandview buys homes as is, no matter the condition of the property. You don't need to do any repairs, not even a clean-out. Just leave the stress and the mess to us. So call us at 630-506-8282. That's 630-506-8282. Or visit us at grandviewhomes.com.
AM560, The Answer.
All right. right, let's try it again. Joe Trost, student-athlete advocate, founder of Buddies Helpers, a nonprofit that engages and educates student-athletes using the power of sport to make a difference off the field. He's a former reporter for the Sun-Times, Tribune, and ESPN. Joe, are you with us?
I think Juwan Howard reached through the phone as soon as he heard I was an Ohio State fan, and just wanted to cut things off there.
He's got a temper.
As I was saying before,
yeah.
To Amy's points, they had a right to call a timeout, and you are trying to display the right behavior. Playing devil's advocate on the other side, we tend to always want to go to extremes with punishments and whatnot. So I think there's going to be some heavy conversations not only between the university officials today, but the Big Ten and the NCAA, and decide whether or not this is a long-term suspension or if it's termination.
Well,
I mean, is it different? Is it different trying to punch a coach as opposed to the Woody Hayes incident from '78?
I think that's a longer conversation. Obviously, there's you should never put your hands on anyone, right? And especially you're trying to display the right behavior, but also at the same standpoint, I think the right people need to sit there and have some conversations and allow the emotion to kind of settle and decide what's best long term.
But to Greg Gard, I mean, Juwan Howard kept saying, "Okay, I look forward to the investigation so I can tell them what happened leading up to that." Did Greg Gard, from the video that you saw, do you think he antagonized him first by putting his finger on his chest?
Again, that's where you're going to have to look at things and do some investigations. It appeared so. But again, that doesn't just because someone does something to you, you have to be able to restrain and do the right things. That would be the same thing that a player would say to, or that a coach would say to a player, that the second person is always the one that gets caught. So whether or not he was antagonized or if something was said or other things that maybe we didn't see as the viewer, you still need to display the right behavior. So again, I think there's going to be some heavy conversations here because it was on a high profile stage here, and they need to do the right thing.
All right, so switching gears, let's talk a little bit about the IHSA and the upcoming winter sports playoffs. Where do we talked a lot about this last year because it was there was a hope that it was going to be on and it was mostly off, and the last 2 years have been catastrophic for students and student athletes and the combination of the two. This year, now that we're emerging ever slowly from the COVID mandates, what's your handle on IHSA playoffs and how these are going to proceed for the respective sports?
So if you think about it, it's almost 2 years to the date, right? Coming up here when the IHSA had started their basketball playoffs and then had to slowly postpone them. So this will be the first full IHSA boys basketball playoffs that are actually kicked off on Friday, Saturday with some prelim games. Most of the regional semifinals are Tuesday, Wednesday this week. It's huge for the IHSA from a stability standpoint because their two biggest revenue producing sports are football and basketball. So they really want a stretch without some major revenue coming in, and that's their main source outside of general entry fees from schools. But again, it's a great opportunity for these student athletes to get back out there on a big stage, especially for the ones that can't afford the high profile clubs. The state playoffs have more eyes on them. So it's great that slowly but surely we're starting to get back to normal. Obviously these coaches and kids, that's what they want, the normalcy. And hopefully here over the next month, next 45 days, that's exactly what we're going to see at the end of the winter state playoffs and the start of the spring sport.
But then what about, Proviso West and Proviso East? Are they still going to go on strike? I know there was talk of them going on strike on Friday, but they postponed it to Tuesday, and they've been going remote ever since.
Yep. So it's obviously Proviso's in a unique situation. So if everybody recalls 2019 with the CTU strike, which sidelined thousands of CPS student athletes right at the start of the fall football playoffs, and obviously unions are using these tactics to obviously push their negotiating status. So over at Proviso, last week there was obviously some uproar, and teachers had walked out on Wednesday. Some issues inside the school with students. There was a talk of a strike on Friday. Teachers postponed that. They are having a negotiation session on Wednesday. Both Proviso West and Proviso East basketball teams open the state playoffs. The unique thing here is the IHSA still has the strike policy in place. And the IHSA, after this CTU strike of 2019, had specifically told media and told all schools that they were going to sit down and deal with this. The last time they've dealt with this is December 12th of 2019, and they tabled it then for weather, pointing to the standpoint that some board of directors couldn't be there. The challenge with this IHSA strike policy is what it does is if a school goes on strike, it's really the student athletes that get penalized. They're not allowed to take part in the state playoffs, so it's really out of their control. So right now, it appears that they're going to, Proviso West and Proviso East are going to be able to take the floor. And hopefully Proviso is going to be able to settle this with the teachers. If not, there could be, some impacted student athletes here over the next couple of weeks.
Can Proviso East use scabs? Like, could they call Donnie Boyce, Michael Finley, and Sherelle Ford back and have them play as scabs if the kids that are currently there are sidelined? Is that provided for at IHSA?
Yeah, that would be interesting. But what they
I mean,
what they
come
could
on,
do,
he's probably like 50. He wouldn't be any better than the high school kids, maybe. Yeah.
The thing that was talked about in 2019, and Joyce Kenner, who's on the IHSA board of directors, had talked to Eric Zorn from the Chicago Tribune, talking about the standpoint that the IHSA and really adults throughout the state needed to do the right thing and eliminate this strike policy. Yep. From the standpoint that even if teachers and unions were out on strike, that there were administrators that could step in to coach these teams, so the student athletes wouldn't be impacted at the most important part of the season. So that's really something, to your point, where you could have somebody fill in. It's really on the coaching side. Obviously, the school buildings are still open to help those lower income students in the areas get lunch during the day, sometimes shelter. There's absolutely no reason why during the state playoffs that administrators couldn't step up and help in these unique situations. And that's why the IHSA needs to really deal with the strike policy. Not only does it impact student athletes, but think about this. During the state playoffs, you tend to have more fans come out to the games. What do fans do after games? They go to local businesses. So you're not only impacting student athletes, you're impacting the local economy. And that's something the IHSA is doing with the strike policy. And one reason why, I've asked numerous superintendents throughout the state, why is this in place? And it's in place because there's superintendents years ago who talked with the IHSA saying we need this there as leverage to keep unions from walking out. Think about this point. If you're in a small community, right, and you're having a huge football or basketball season, do you really think the teachers in that small community are going to walk out on those student athletes? The parents would be in an uproar. So there's politics on both sides of this, and that's where the IHSA needs to do the right thing for the student athletes. Next board of directors meeting, address this, something that they were supposed to do 2 years ago and they haven't. And here we are again, quite possibly with some student athletes in the Proviso district that could be impacted.
How big do you think that Glenbard West Sierra Canyon game was in terms of, and the attention it got, particularly within, the ranks of high school sports here, to exacerbating the revolt that has happened against mask policy and making sure all of this stuff happens? Because when you see those kids from Glenbard West play the kids from Sierra Canyon, you see them playing without masks. It's a great game. Why can't we do that for every game? Why can't we do that at our school if they can do that at Wintrust Arena? How important was that game? Do you think that was like a watershed moment?
No, I think it was any time when things are on a big stage, you're going to have conversations. Just as the big stage with Juwan Howard's situation, the big stage with the mask policies. Obviously, there's people on both sides of this, and it's when you put a spotlight on anything, whether it's students and parents out in front of a school, and you've got news helicopters, or you've got something on ESPN. It just continues to keep the topic of conversation amongst people, and I'm sure that was a huge part.
Well, what are the rules though? So if you play a school that is mask optional during the day, so a kid's, if the parents and the kids agree they don't want to wear masks, they don't have to wear them, and then they play basketball after school, do they have to wear masks if they're playing a school that's not mask optional? I mean, do you know what the rules are, or do they keep changing every day?
It's changing every day. There was a picture that ran in the Riverside Landmark last week from the Lyons Township Hinsdale Central basketball game. Lyons Township has masks during the day, and if you look at this picture, there's not one student in the crowd.
Oh, I saw that. Yep.
And with masks on, so you're just sitting there, you're looking around. Obviously, some of these administrators, one thing that superintendents have talked about, and again, everybody has difference of opinions here, is that they've kind of been caught in the middle here, that there is some political pressure from local politicians to support, these issues. Obviously in different areas where maybe it's not a Democrat and it's a Republican, there's been a little bit more flexibility. And again, that's the unfortunate thing throughout this entire thing, is just really how political this has become.
Do you think the IHSA? Do you think? Yeah, I mean, do you think the IHSA has seen its credibility diminish? I mean, former Ohio State quarterback, now Bears quarterback, Justin Fields. I mean, he essentially took it upon himself to lead us back to college football a couple of years ago, which was impressive leadership on his part. Didn't ever see any similar leadership from the IHSA throughout the last 2 years. That's my view of the IHSA. I think they behaved shamefully. But you're curious if you think that's a prevailing opinion or a minority opinion.
Well, I think a lot of people realize that when push comes to shove, that the IHSA really doesn't have as much power as what people once thought it did, because they were essentially powerless for 2 years. So at the end of the day, it's really the superintendents throughout the state. When they rally together, they're the ones that can really push things. The IHSA is there to essentially run state playoffs. That's really what the IHSA is. They've, from an eligibility standpoint, and state playoffs. That's really the main focus of the IHSA. I think for years people thought that it was this huge, powerful group, and you truly saw over the past years that they're not as powerful as some people think that they are.
Well, do you think they could have done more to advocate on behalf of kids? Because, my God, we didn't have fall playoffs last year. We were allowed, 3 or 4 football games, few volleyball games, just, make happy, the parents happy so that we shut up and just follow along. But it was so ridiculous not to have football playoffs or city championships or any of that, and they didn't fight for us.
Yeah, and that's when you look, especially when you look at the states, all the Midwest states around that were really running things throughout the end of 2020, and that's where you saw the Let Us Play rallies and student athletes trying to get out there, where you had kids going over the borders, playing in different states, and then they'd come back and you couldn't play. One thing superintendents have told me is the standpoint that as much as people want to point to the IHSA, it really should have been, and you saw this, if you recall, back in 2020 when a group of superintendents really rallied together to say that their schools were going to go ahead and play, and they pushed the IHSA to go ahead and play basketball. There's just been massive fractions of the superintendents not on the same page all throughout the state. So if there would have been more of them to push, you would have seen it. The IHSA is really, again, I think that as things get back to normal here, there's a lot of member schools that are kind of re-looking at the relationship with the IHSA and seeing what is truly best, moving forward, for all student athletes in all schools.
Paraphrasing Thomas Sowell, a group of superintendents is the least intelligent form of life. Student athlete advocate Joe Trost, founder of Buddy's Helpers, a nonprofit that engages and educates student athletes using the power of sport to make a difference off the field. He's a former reporter for the Sun-Times, Tribune, and ESPN as well. Joe, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
A while back, we at AmericanEagle.com were asked to build the e-commerce site of a major candy distributor. With the need for a website that could take into account everything from shipping times to local weather, because, candy melts, the task was not like taking candy from a baby. Fortunately, we live for a good digital challenge and free bonbons. So we got to work on a slew of complex integrations, including a shipping algorithm that factored in variables like distance, speed, and location. The website even let the end customer personalize their candy for special events, like weddings or, major website launches. When all was said and done, our client enjoyed a significant increase in traffic, which we were also well prepared for, and an increase in average order size. A sweet result indeed. For complex e-commerce sites, digital marketing, UX, and more, talk to the experts at AmericanEagle.com. Don't just grow, soar.
In the new year, you've been inundated with messages about top 10 health hacks and 3 ways to stick to your 2022 resolutions. It gets overwhelming and a bit tired, doesn't it? But the truth is, we do need to prioritize our health, especially our heart health. Nearly half of adults in the United States have high blood pressure. It's a health condition you can't afford to ignore, but you can learn to manage it. And 120 Life can start you on your way to lower numbers. 120 Life is a juice drink made of 6 natural ingredients, each proven to help lower blood pressure, including pomegranate and hibiscus. It's an 8-ounce bottle of I'm in control of my high blood pressure. Try it for 2 weeks. If you aren't satisfied with the results, you get your money back, guaranteed. It's simple. For AM 560 listeners, in honor of American Heart Month, 120 Life is offering a special product discount. Go to 120life.com and use the code DAN for 10% off your 2-week trial purchase. That's 120life.com. Use my name, Dan, to save 10%. I'm drinking it. I love it, and I know you will too.
Stop wasting energy. There's a better way. Your company could be receiving energy efficiency